Hello viewers, welcome back to another episode of How to Beat Beth Harmon. Today I'll be taking on the very last bot in the series. This one is supposed to be 2700. The last bots I've played have been heavily overrated, so we'll see if this bot really is 2700 or not. So let's get started. So usual stuff, bring your pieces out, control the center. So you saw us same setup in the last two games. Well, last two games you played knight f6. a6 is a bit more popular. This is all very well known. So now, similar to a couple of games ago, I play d4 here to try to open up this file so I can cause some damage there with my rook. So trying to take there, let my rook get in the game is a bit too dangerous, so that's why she returns the pawn. And now I want to try to undermine that very strong knight over here, so this is the most popular move. Let's see, I think I'm supposed to play bishop back here. On to d4, so this has been played before. The idea is that if black does nothing, then I barricade that pawn with knight b3 and knight d4, so black tries to get that pawn push in right away. So I was intentionally luring the pawn forward, all still very well known, in order to round it up and capture it. So black is trying to support the pawn, but I'm going to play bishop here and then block the d-file and then round up that pawn. Okay, that move is new to me. I have to get rid of that pawn on d3. If that pawn survives, my bishop on b1 is going to be just a very sad piece for the rest of the game, and black will have dominance in the center. So I want to play knight d4 here in order to block black's queen from protecting that pawn so I can pick it off. And I want to take with the pawn. If I take with the bishop, she could play c5 at some point and then take this guy. What you'd like to do is play rook fd8 and just pile up on my d4 pawn. So I want to step out of the pin by coming here. So I gotta take with the bishop because if I took with the queen, that would drop this guy. So I gotta hold onto my bishop and my pawn, so this move makes sense. Rook d8 hits my bishop. If I play bishop c3, then she'll play pawn b4, forcing my bishop back to e1, a miserable square where it blocks my own rook. So I have to come here. So I gave this a lot of thought, and I think my best option is pawn to h3. That may be surprising. Here's why I decided that. So I was looking at rook takes a6 over here, but then black has rook c2, hitting my pawn over here, and also putting the rook on a very dominant square. I could play rook a2 to save the pawn, but my rooks will never be able to coordinate, and she'll have a lot of compensation. I will be up 2 pawns nominally, but her b5 pawn would neutralize both my b pawns, so it only feels like 1 pawn, and she has so much activity, I think she would be fine there. I was also looking at rook to c1. The problem though is that there rook takes and then rook takes. She can already cause me problems with queen d1 check. I can't take it because of checkmate on the back rank, so queen e1. She has many options there, but at the very least, she could just trade queens, play rook d2, and that rook is going to be very, very powerful. So the more I looked at stuff, the more I realized that my weak back rank was a problem. So I'm going to play here, creating some space for my king, so now I don't have to worry about getting mated on the back row. This is a fairly common idea in chess. It's called making Luft, German for air, for your king. Bishop b4. I guess you could play bishop d2 in some lines and chase my queen away. After another long think, I'm inclined to play rook takes a6. I was originally looking at rook c1, but then after rook e8, I did not see a good way to stop both rook takes e5 and bishop d2. Now, after rook takes a6, there is rook c2, but thanks to my h3 move that I played earlier, I can now play rook c1 and not worry about checkmates with queen e1. So after rook takes a6, rook c2, rook c1, if black tries bishop d2, I can just take the rook, and if she zaps my queen, then I play rook c8. I've got the back rank checkmate going for me. Okay, I think we're okay. She's hitting my e5 pawn. If I play f4, f6, I think that just makes matters worse. Black has a lot of activity here. I'm actually not really looking for a win anymore, just trying to find some way to bail out and hold a draw. I did look a little bit at queen g3. However, after I think rook e6, followed by rook g6, could cause me some serious problems. There's also possibly rook takes e5 might work, though black has some back rank issues to think about. I'm looking at rook a7. So the idea is after rook takes, bishop takes, and then rook takes e5, I have queen d4, which will force some trades, and I should survive. She says, thank you, I'll take that queen. Why, thank you, I'll take your queen. How far ahead after queen capture have you calculated? You guys are my witnesses. That is actually the end of my calculations. I did not see any further than that. So I am nominally up a pawn, but her b5 pawn is good enough to neutralize both these guys, and she's still active, so it should be equal here. Bishop c3 should be heading towards a draw. Here she is threatening to play b4. That would push my bishop to a very unfortunate square e1, so I want to stop that by playing b4. Now, here's an important tip, folks. A lot of times, non-masters, if they see a threat, they just want to react to it. stronger players know that you can try to ignore a threat and trump it with a bigger threat. So before I play that, I'm going to play rook e1, activating my rook. She doesn't have time to play b4 because if rook e1, b4, then I have rook e8 check, bishop f8, and then bishop takes b4 and white wins. So I get to activate my rook for free, and only then will I stop her threat. So now rook e8 doesn't lead to anything because she just has king f7. So now is a good time to snuff out that b5, b4 threat. And she activates her king. Recall we learned a couple episodes ago that in the endgame, it's good to bring your king out because it can participate in the action, and there aren't enough attackers left to hunt it down. I think I'll copy that idea and activate my own king. I could play king e2, continue the theme of bringing up the king, but that would allow her to bring her king into the game as well with king e6. So instead, I want to play rook e4. That way I can still play king e2 next move while keeping her king boxed out. She's just shuffling her bishop back and forth. I don't see a lot of constructive ideas here. I think I'll just bring my rook back and forth. And I'll probably have to agree to a draw soon. Alright, so we drew. So probably not 2700 strength like the website claims, but that definitely made me sweat and played a pretty good game. So that wraps up this episode. Hope I inspired you to play better chess. Don't forget to subscribe.